Welcome back, everyone. I'm Tommy Canale, and welcome to Before the Lights podcast, the show to find out how those in sports, music, and entertainment have made their mark. Please go to our website, beforethelightspod.com, and follow us on Instagram at beforethelightspod. Make sure you subscribe and share the show, please. All right, everyone, get a coffee, grab a drink, tell your family, friends, neighbors, and yes, strangers. It's time to have an in-depth conversation with our guest. Today, my guest has over 25 years of experience in the game of golf. He has played on the PGA Tour, the Nationwide Tour, has made over 150 cuts on these tours, and is currently a highly revered golf instructor at High Performance Golf Institute at Lake Las Vegas, a native of Indiana and Notre Dame fan. Please welcome Jeff Gallagher. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tommy. Glad to be here.
Yes, we're going to have some fun, and we're going to take a little trip back to memory lane with you. Take me through your success as a junior golfer first.
Oh, wow. That's way back. I got to remember all that stuff. I got started at a really early age. My dad was a club professional in Indiana, and fortunately my brother and sister and I were kind of spoiled. We got to play a really good golf course every day of our life, and so we had clubs in our hand at 4 or 5 years old, and I think I started playing tournament golf maybe 8 or 9, and back then there wasn't a whole lot. We just played local stuff, and 9 holes each tournament, and I just kind of built it from there, and just continued to grow in the game, and with great instruction from my father, and then won a bunch of tournaments as a young kid, and then I got to the teen years, and that was a little bit more competitive. Obviously, that's what happens at those ages, and I played in our local stuff, mainly Indiana State juniors, Indiana State AMs. A few of the USGA stuff. I played in 2 US juniors while I was in high school, and then I won our Indiana State junior. I guess I was 17 years old. I was 17 years old my last year playing junior golf, and then that built into going to play college golf at Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana.
Going back to you won the 1982 Indiana State champion. What do you recall about winning that event?
Let's see. Yeah, we used to play at Purdue University's golf course.
Okay.
It was staged there every year. I'm not sure if it was that year or the year before. I was medalist and ended up getting beaten like the semifinals. I think that was the year before, to a player who played at Purdue, who was kind of my, nemesis growing up in junior golf. I could never beat him, it seemed like. And then my last year in '82, we got paired in the finals, and it was a match play tournament. And I don't know exactly where I think I won 2-1, something like that. But that was a big step in my success with golf. Is that was my first big win as a junior golfer and as a high schooler, and to beat a kid that was probably ranked in the top 10, top 15 in the country at junior golf, and so. That kind of catapulted my career a little bit.
Was your family, were you guys all competitive, being you had a father, brother, and sister that were all pretty successful in athletics? Do you guys feed off each other and compete against each other?
Oh yeah, definitely. Our dad was a great instructor. I mean, he kept it simple. It was one of those deals. He as a kid, he's like, if you want my help, I'm here for you. If you don't, and I'm not going to push you to play golf. And so our motivation came from ourselves, and there was a big gap, 3.5 years with my brother, and I think I was 3 years older than my younger sister. So, I got to watch what my brother did, growing up, and that was, he was probably a top 5, top 10, junior or high schooler in the country, recruited by every school known to man, and little old me was 3 years back there just wanting to be him, and it's funny because I never could ever beat him, especially as a junior golfer. And I didn't realize, when I was 14 that he was, almost 18 years old. It's a lot harder to beat an 18-year-old when you're 14. So,
sure.
It took me a while to do it. I actually believe it or not, and I tell this story. It's kind of funny. The first time I ever beat him playing golf competitively, or head to head, and just fun matches at home was my rookie year on the PGA Tour in 1996 at Pebble
Wow.
Beach. So we got paired together there, and that was the first time I ever beat him. So it took me a long time, but that was that's the way it was. I got to watch him and watch his success, and I learned a lot from it.
Jeff's older brother, Jim, was a 5-time winner. And how did he take that when you finally defeated him?
It's funny. We talked about that about a month ago because he has his own little podcast that he does back in Mississippi, and we were discussing it, and I said, "Do you remember that day that I beat you at Pebble Beach?" He goes, "Yeah, you beat me the first day, but I beat you the second." And then they rained out the tournament, and so it didn't count. And I'm like, "Yeah, it counted. My 2-day total was better than yours." So that was my first time, and ever since then, I beat him every time since then. So
once you got the taste of victory from him, you just kind of put the pedal to the metal on him a little bit.
Yeah, no, and it was awesome because he was by far he was one of the top players in the world back in his day, and Ryder Cup or President's Cup, 5-time winners, he said, and to be able to compete with a guy like that, you gain a lot of confidence from it, and I learned a lot from him, which is I would say obviously my dad's my golf hero, but my brother was probably part of it because of growing up and learning from him.
What was your recruitment like, and how did the decision come about to attend Ball State?
Well, I wasn't highly recruited. I mean, I was a decent junior golfer, and I didn't like school very much. So all you kids out there that are listening, do well in school because that's what college coaches want. They want you to be good golfers, but they want you to succeed in the classroom. And I did. I just didn't put the effort into it. I probably should have. And so for me, I didn't get recruited by a lot of schools. I had South Carolina looking at me for a while, and then they didn't go for me. And I had a few other offers from a couple other schools. And I tell people the funniest one was I was recruited by Army to play golf at the school there, and then I was recruited by Yale for some reason. But fortunately, I chose to stay home in Indiana and played at Ball State, and we had competitive seasons every year, and we would play against Big Ten schools. And back when I played, Ohio State was a top 5 school in the country, so we were always playing against good competition.
What do you recall about Ball State, maybe your freshman year, or getting acclimated to college golf? Was it a big adjustment for you from going from high school golf into playing college golf, or did you just kind of go with the flow and you were okay?
No, it wasn't a big adjustment. I think it was only 45 minutes or 40 minutes away from my home, so it wasn't like I was that far away from home. Like some kids have to travel all the way across country and away from their parents. And obviously, when I got there, I didn't go home, but I struggled a little bit. I have a lot of great stories when it comes to golf because as you know, I teach a lot of junior golfers, and some of them struggle. But my freshman year, I didn't play my whole fall first season. I tried to qualify a couple times, got hurt my back, and I actually was out for about 4 weeks. So I missed my whole fall season, and that kind of, it was kind of a downfall for me a little bit mentally because I was excited to play college golf, and we had a really good team. I had played a lot of good players on our team. Brian Tennyson, who's one of my teammates, he actually went on to play the PGA Tour also, and so we had the potential to be a really good team, and I didn't make that traveling squad. And I got better, and in the spring, our first tournament was at our home course, and I was motivated to get back on that team, and I wasn't in the top 5, and I ended up finishing second in the tournament, and then I never really looked back from there. I played number 1 or 2 throughout my next 3.5 years. So
I would guess so, because eventually you were inducted into the Ball State Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts when you learned that you were going to be inducted into that?
Well, that was a big honor. I mean, even though, Ball State's not known for its golf, so to speak. I mean, they're building a really good program right now. Mike Fleck, who's the coach there, he's done a really good job with the program there. It was special. Obviously, I was playing the tour at the time, and unfortunately, I never got to go to the ceremony. So my dad accepted all the stuff for me, so I kind of missed out on that. Unfortunately, I wish I would have been there, but at the time, I had to try to make money for my family, and to me that was a little bit more important. But still, I was the first Gallagher in a Hall of Fame, I think. So besides my dad, I think he was in the Indiana Hall of Fame before, but I thought that was kind of funny. My brother played at University of Tennessee, and he never got inducted into the Hall of Fame there until I think a couple years ago.
So he
was an All-American, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a great achievement for, actually your whole household. You turned you turned pro in 1987. Was there any thought about when to turn pro, or were you just ready to go?
No, I was ready to go. I didn't know if my golf game was ready to go, but it was, I had aspired to do that my whole life. And as I said, I got to see what my brother did. He was good enough that he qualified his rookie year on the PGA Tour, his first try. So, in 87, all we basically had back then were little mini tours down in Florida. I think they might have had one in California, but they had mini tours in Florida. So, I just struggled with that. We put together a bunch of members from my club, helped sponsor us, and kind of got us started. And every one of the kids, my brother, my sister, all three of us did the same thing. And fortunately, we had members that were willing to trust that we were going to make it, and they helped us get out there. And we owe it all to the people back in Marion, Indiana.
What kind of nerves did you have on your first pro event?
Well,
knee shaking or no?
My very first one was like a little local PGA section deal that I got in. It was a tournament in Monticello, Indiana. Neat little golf course, and I don't remember what my nerves were like, but my nerves are always shot when I'm playing golf. I mean, to this day, I still get nervous every time I get on a golf course, but it's learning how to handle those nerves is what makes you a good player. And I actually finished third in that tournament, so that was my first success. And then I went down to Florida for the mini tours, and I had zero success. I mean, I struggled. I made a chuck here and there, but the players were so good in Florida, back in the day. And it was an adjustment going from bent grass in Indiana to Bermuda grass. So that took a while. And then I tried the PGA Tour qualifying school that fall, made it to the second stage to get to the finals, and lost in a playoff. So then it was just back to playing state AMs and mini tours again until the Hogan Tour became about in 1990. So that was kind of my first experience with professional golf. I wasn't making a whole lot of money, I can tell you that.
Well, the Ben Hogan Tour, you had 2 wins there, 34 top 10s, and you talked about making a check here and there. And for our listeners, talk about what it's like as a professional golfer when you're trying to make maybe your first cut or your first couple cuts, because you're trying to make money for your family.
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, back in 90, I wasn't married yet. I didn't get married till 93. But, as a single person, it's a little easier because you don't have to worry about what's going on. But it was a struggle compared. I mean, it's a struggle now, I guess, with some of the mini tours. Well, obviously, we're playing for a lot more money on the tours than what we did back when I played. But, the mini tours they were dreadful. I mean, you'd spend $400 to make $300. So you stayed in dumpy hotels and ate, whatever you could do to get by. And then, that having the Hogan Tour, they had a qualifier for it, and I finished, I think, 3rd or 4th in that qualifier to make me exempt for the year. And, that was the next stepping stone. I think we played, each tournament was $100,000 that a week, and we had 30 of them. I think it was $20,000 for first place, and I missed my first 10 cuts to start the year out. So that was a lot of fun.
I'll bet. You start doubting yourself at that point?
What's that?
Did you start doubting yourself a little bit then?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, it's you know how golf is. I mean, once a negative gets in there, it just stays in there, and you just have to kind of somewhat be positive. And it was intimidating to me because I was, obviously I played college golf against a lot of really good players, but now the Hogan Tour was the guys who were playing from Oklahoma State and Florida's and, Texas and all the, from all over the country instead of just a region in the Midwest. And, I never really thought my game was good enough to play against them, I think, and that's what kind of held me back. And then 10 weeks into it, I'm thinking they really aren't any better than I am. I just gotta believe I'm better. And I think I don't remember correctly, but I think it was might have been Fort Wayne, Indiana, was the first cut I made, and I could be wrong, but I know that was one of my first top tens on the Hogan Tour, and I think I finished fourth there, and I was just kind of, built a lot of confidence off of that, and I succeeded and made a little bit of money that year. I think my total earnings that year were $27,000, if you want to make that a little bit of money, and probably spent about 20. So, wasn't a very lucrative job.
Well, to go along with that, I see in 1990, 1992, you were a tour rep for Maxfly Golf on the web.com tour. So you were doing that as well as being a professional. So what were the challenges like of doing both? What was your responsibilities of being a tour rep?
Well, I was responsible for ordering golf balls and gloves and hats every week, and distributing them to the Maxfly players. I think we'd have anywhere from 8 to 20 players or 15 players mostly every week. And back on the Hogan Tour the first year or so, I mean, we really didn't play very many fantastic golf courses, and they didn't have locker rooms, so you couldn't just like leave them in the locker like they do now. So I had to track down a bunch of guys every week. So my practice was a little bit limited, and I think after a while, especially after the first year, I think I just said, you know what, here's the deal. You want me? This is when I'm going to be here, and if you want to get your golf balls, you can get them then. And if not, I'm trying to make a living. So, but I was very fortunate that I had that Maxfly deal, because that was my income for the year. Because as I said, I didn't make a whole lot of money playing.
Yeah, and probably back then there was a lot of players doing things to supplement their income as well as playing golf.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there. I don't know of any offhand, but I'm sure there were a lot of guys that did stuff at certain times. But I think I ended up finishing 51st on the money list that year by like $200, and 50th and under got you to the second stage. So I had to return back to the first stage of tour school that year in '91, and I finished. I think our last tournament was in El Paso, and I watched it. I think it was Scott Gump made a putt from about 6 feet that if he misses, I go to second stage automatically and don't have to go to first stage. But he makes it, and I think I missed out by like $100 or under $200 it was, and so after the next day I heated up on Tuesday for the first stage of tour school. That was the way it was back in the day. I'm sure it's kind of the same way to a certain extent now, but I had success that year. I made it all the way to the finals, and I remember playing at La Quinta in '91. My dad was caddying for me, and I was playing the 8th hole at the Nicholas Resort course. It was my 70 or 100 and however many holes we played, 106. It was my 105th hole. I needed birdie probably to make it. I hit it on the par 5 and 2 and 3-putted from 80 feet or something like that, and I ended up missing my tour card by a shot that year.
So many young people out there that have aspirations to play on the pro golf or play pro tour, but in reality, it's less than 1% of the number of junior golfers that are playing golf that actually get to see their name on a PGA Tour leaderboard. And you brought up a couple good things, Jeff, about missing out by $100 and missing out by a shot. And I really don't think that the people that are young these days understand how competitive and how fine-tuned the margin for error is these days. I mean, you can't miss. And if you do, somebody's going to pass you.
Yeah, I mean, and especially now. I mean, back when I played, obviously golf was probably not as big as it is now. Once Tiger came out, it made it bigger, and everybody wants to be like that. And yeah, it is. There's such a fine line between, obviously the top 10, top 20, top 30 players in the world are probably much better than the majority of people, but there's still a fine line between 125th on the money list and second on the money list. I mean, there really is.
Mm-hmm.
At any point, anybody on the PGA Tour or Korn Ferry Tour or LPGA Tour, anybody can win. I mean, it's just it's so competitive now, and it really was never like that. If you looked at back in the 80s and 90s, maybe the early 90s, the turnover on the PGA Tour was not as big as it is now. Now it's just, I mean, you could be 10th on the money list one year, and then 2 years later you're playing the Korn Ferry Tour. So it's competitive.
Jumping back to your career, in 1998, you had 6 top 10s on the PGA Tour. You were 6th at the Nissan, which Billy Mayfair won at 12 under. He had rounds of 69, 71, 68, 69, finished -7. What was your mindset in that event when you started to climb the leaderboard and get in contention?
Please play good. I mean, at the time it was early in the year, obviously, and I was never a West Coaster. I didn't play very well on the West Coast very often. I might have made a couple cuts here and there, but I never really got off to a great start. I think I played well in Hawaii that year. And then we were supposed to play, obviously, the Nissan tournament was always played at Riviera in LA. And I think that year they had closed the course to redo the greens for the PGA Championship, I believe, that year or the next year. And so they moved us to Valencia Country Club up in Valencia, just north of the city. And the golf course just suited my eye. I mean, I remember playing practice rounds. It was always my brother and Bruce Litsky. We always played practice rounds together. And Litsky was a fader of the golf ball, so was I, and so was my brother. And every hole except for number 1, 2, and 10 were dogleg rights. And so it was like, man, this thing sets up perfect for me. I made the cut. I think, what'd you say I shot the second day? 66 or something like that?
Second day shot 71.
71? I don't know. Well, whatever. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, it seemed like 66, yeah. And I played the Saturday, I played behind Tiger. And so, when you're around Tiger, you're playing well. So
yep.
that was a good thing. And then the last day I played, Tiger was behind me, and Billy Mayfair ended up beating Tiger that year. And I think I ended up shooting a really low score. And I shot like 32 on the back 9 or something like that to shoot the 68 or 9 or whatever I shot, and vaulted me up to, top of the leaderboard. And I think at that time that was my top finish on the tour at that time. So, and that just, I played well after that the rest of the year. I think I played about 35 events and made 20 cuts, 22 cuts, something like that. Maybe it seemed like 21 or 22 cuts, but and I had a lot of really good success the rest of the year.
When you're getting in a playing groove, so to speak, and you're on the tour, and for people out there, maybe they don't understand, I've been fortunate enough to talk to a number of professional golfers. Found interesting is you guys usually don't remember what you shot, but you remember where you finished in relation to what your paycheck was, because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to, is earning a paycheck. So when you're in a playing groove, do you just kind of get in a groove and you just don't really think about making cuts? You just figure, I'm going to make this cut and I'm going to make that cut, and until something happens when you don't make a cut?
Yeah, when you're playing well, you're not even worried about what the cut is. I mean, generally, I would take it as this: is if you're struggling, you're always thinking about, all right, how am I going to make the cut? What's the cut going to be? And then you shoot 69 the first day, and now you're thinking, all right, what's the cut number right now? What do I have to shoot? And that's not the way you're supposed to play golf. I mean, you're supposed to play golf by just playing the game and beating the golf course every single day and not ever worrying about the cut. And when you're playing well, you don't think of those kind of things. You just think about, hey, I'm going to make a lot of birdies. I'm going to shoot 66 every day. And, that's what your mindset is, compared to, when you're struggling. When you're struggling, you're just thinking, how am I just going to make it this Saturday and Sunday?
And then once you do finally get past that hurdle of, okay, I've made the cut, I'm playing the weekend, is some of that dissipate and go away because now you get some confidence back in you?
Sometimes, but, I think you put a little bit more pressure on yourself also. You make the cut on the number, sometimes now you're trying to force yourself into shooting 266s, and, it can backfire on you. But, I think, and it is funny now that I'm 55 and I've been playing a little bit on the Champions Tour and a couple of U.S. Senior Opens the last few years. And, I tell a lot of my kids, and not just my kids, but any of my students, that it's funny. I wish I knew now what I knew then. And I know we always say that, but, I made my job a job. And it was my job, but I made it more of a job than it was supposed to be. And I should have had a little bit more fun with it. I think I struggled with injuries, so that kind of kept the game, not where it probably could have been. But, when you make something a job and you're just forcing yourself to, think about it that way, then the fun is taken out. And now when I play, I have fun. It's still my job. I teach and I still play. When I play, I'm very competitive. I'm still focused like I used to be, but I have fun with it. And, I think as a junior golfer, I think that's what you gotta, anybody's out there listening, that's the most important thing, is just have fun with the game. And you'll have success. If you're always uptight and always worrying about what your swing looks like, or what your playing partners are doing, or what, the wind's doing, whatever it is, that's when you struggle. So, go out and have fun. It's such a fun game. It's very difficult, but you got to be mentally tough, and having fun with it is by far the most important part of it.
You brought something up that just brought a question to mind. Realms of, having a career and maybe losing focus of having fun when you're playing on tour, and always wondering what you said with playing partners and everything else. Is it fair to say that most professional golfers that are close to possibly losing their tour card, that becomes an addiction? You're constantly worrying and looking of what everybody else is doing, and takes away the focus you should have on what you're doing?
Yeah. And I think, the mental part of the game is by far the hardest part of it. And when you're struggling, or you're trying to keep yourself in the top 125, and even 98, when I played fairly well, I got hurt late in the year and I struggled, and it was all I thought about was, all right, am I going to finish in the top 125 at the end of the year? Well, I was 80th on the money list at the time, and when I got hurt, and I ended up finishing 112th. Well, the more you start thinking of those kind of things, the worse your golf game gets. So, you have to have a great mental mindset to play this game. And if you have a little bit of distraction here and there, and you're just thinking about the negative, then it's probably going to be a lot of negative happening.
In 1999, you were fortunate enough to play at the U.S. Open at Pinehurst, which was the final victory of the Payne Stewart, and everybody remembers that memory. Unfortunately, you missed the cut, but if you could talk to our listeners about the difficulty of a U.S. Open course in comparison to what you guys normally see on tour, and the thought process about being in a U.S. Open.
Yeah, playing in the U.S. Open, being an American is it's probably the top thing, I would think. I had struggled a few years of getting to play in my first U.S. Open. I think I missed by one shot 3 times prior to that, and I got so frustrated with it. I'm like, you know what, this really isn't worth trying. It's just, you get to the top, and you're one stroke from making it and never playing in it. And so the year I made it, I was playing so good. I think I eased my way in, got like 8, 9, 10 under in the 2 rounds that we had to play to qualify. And that year at Pinehurst, it wasn't your typical U.S. Open golf course where they had 12 inches of rough and, that type of stuff. It was a couple 2 inches, 3 inches of Bermuda rough. But Pinehurst, if anybody's ever played there, it is the most brutal golf course, one of the most brutal golf courses you'll ever play, just because of the green setup. And, I went in playing as good as I've probably ever played that whole year. And so my mindset was, hey, go at pins, you're hitting it great, go at it. Well, that didn't take long to shoot 78 or 77 the first day. And I learned that quickly that the U.S. Open is not about going at pins. It's about playing smart, and it's about putting the ball on the green. Doesn't matter if it's 50 feet or 10 feet. And I think, that was probably my biggest takeaway from that. And I think I never qualified. I think I tried maybe 1 or 2 more times after that. I didn't enjoy playing in it because I played so bad, but, and then I struggled the rest of the year. And so I said to myself, I don't want to play in these things anymore. I'm just going to, stay away from it. And I think I tried one other time, but I got hurt and didn't get to try to qualify at the second stage of it. And then, like I said earlier, I played in the last 4 U.S. Senior Opens. And I remember my first one was at Scioto back in Ohio, which is Nicklaus's home golf course and where he grew up playing. And my whole mentality that week was middle of the green, fairways, all that kind of stuff. And and it worked out. I finished 17th in the tournament. So, like my total different, it was a completely different mindset from my first U.S. Open playing at Pinehurst.
You brought up the U.S. Open, and you were low medalist of the U.S. Senior Open sectional qualifier last year, and it was your fourth straight trip to the U.S. Senior Open, which in 2019 was held at the Warren Golf Club in South Bend. What was it like going back home to play in Indiana for you and being the U.S. Senior Open?
Oh, I had a lot of goals for every one of my Senior Opens. I mean, the first one I qualified for, I've been medalist every time, and so I've got 4 of those nice USGA medals at home, which is pretty cool. And I'll get to that story, but Scioto was the home of Jack Nicklaus, and he's been my hero, so I wanted to make that one. The next year was in Boston, and my wife's from Maine, and we played at Salem Country Club, and I had my best friend was dying from cancer, and I wanted to qualify for him so he could see me play, and I did, and I made the cut there, and then now I got on a roll. I'm like, all right, Colorado's next. I'm going to go there, and I made that one, and then last year was probably the most special just because it was back home in Indiana. I grew up going to Notre Dame football games. I'm still a Notre Dame fan, even though we struggle at times, but being a kid, walking into Notre Dame Stadium every Saturday was pretty special. And, to qualify for that one was probably I would say it was probably the greatest tournament I think I've ever played in. It was probably my greatest experience playing in a golf tournament in my whole golf career. Playing in front of family and friends and at Notre Dame. The registration was in Notre Dame Stadium. I mean, I was like a little kid in the candy store. And I had so much fun with it and played very well.
If you would, Jeff, talk about, and I've seen the videos, it's kind of cool, about you walking out with the Notre Dame football helmet on to a crowd. Yeah,
that was not supposed to happen. But the locker room that week was basically I think it was the men's golf indoor facility. And so they had a makeshift locker room, brought locker in and all that stuff, and walk in. I think I was teeing off in the morning. I can't remember, but there were jerseys on everybody's locker, and there were helmets all over the place. And I'm talking, and one of the USGA officials was talking to David Toms, who had won the U.S. Senior Open the year before, and David's been a really good friend of mine, and my sister played college golf at LSU with him, and so I've known him for 100 years. And David tries on the helmet, and he can't get it off, and I'm laughing because he's got such a big head. He put on the smallest helmet, I think, and the USGA official's over there with him, and I'm laughing at him. I said, "Hold on, I got to take a picture. I'm sending this to LSU, and they're gonna ban you from going to games." And, an LSU alum wearing a Notre Dame helmet, and so the USGA guy looks at me and he goes, "So, would you wear it?" And I said, "Heck yeah, I'd wear it." He goes, "Would you wear it in the first tee?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And he's like, "All right, we'll bring your jersey and we'll bring the helmet to the first tee 15 minutes before." I said, "Perfect." Well, now I had 2 hours to think about it. I'm thinking, why did I say yes to that? And it was pretty cool. I mean, they had the Notre Dame, fight like a champion or play like a champion. They had everything that's in the locker room. They had it on the way to the first tee, and I tapped the ND, the Irishman, and the ND, and then I tapped the play like a champion, and I show up on the first tee with my helmet on, and there were only about 50 people there, but everybody was going crazy. It was pretty cool.
Yes.
But I was so amped up. Now I can see why football players get so amped up for a football game, because I was so amped up, and nervous at the same time, because now I got to calm myself down. I couldn't calm myself down to hit the first tee shot off the first hole. And somehow I squiggled it out there in the rough and ended up making par, and then, off to the races after that.
Great story. What piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Work harder in school. That would be my number one thing. And I bet if you asked every one of my kids that I teach, and they ask about what it takes, that's the first thing I tell them is work hard in school, because golf only lasts for so long, and I wish I'd have worked a little bit harder at it. Not that I didn't put time into it. I just didn't work as hard as I should have at it. And then I probably would just, like I said earlier, enjoy the game and have fun with it, and don't let it consume you. It's easy for the game to consume you because it's so difficult and you want to do so well. But if you have fun with it and just enjoy it, I think you can see a lot of success from that.
So now you are an instructor when you're not playing, and if you would explain what are some of the challenges and then what are the rewards of being an instructor?
Ooh, the rewards are the best. I mean, just anytime you get to I love working with the junior golfers because they're, they want to learn, and not that grown-ups don't either, and some of the older students don't either, but they have a lot more, their bodies can work a little bit better than some of the grown-ups. So I just think it's so much fun to be able to tell stories about what, and Craig Barlow and I work together out here at Lake Las Vegas, and for us to be able to, give these kids what we've learned over the years is so rewarding, and then to see them have success makes it even better. The downfalls are sometimes just the frustration of telling people the same thing over and over and over again until they finally learn it. And I think sometimes parents get a little bit too difficult on the kids. Like I said, my dad never pushed any of us, and I think my mentality was, I don't want to push my kids. If they want to do it, the junior golfers are gonna work hard if they want to have success at it. So I would say stuff to parents and just say, encourage and don't beat them up with it, for sure.
It's great advice coming from somebody who's had a lot of success. One more question before we wrap it up. What profession other than golf would you always want to try?
Well, being from Indiana, basketball was my go-to. But I thought I was pretty good at basketball. I mean, I grew up in Marion, Indiana, which is like basketball capital of Indiana. So you almost had to know how to play golf. But I think I've pretty much done every sport, so to speak. And the only thing I've never done, and I really want to do it, is ski, believe it or not.
Snow ski?
Yeah, I want to snow ski. I don't know if I want to do it because I don't want to get hurt because I'm very prone to injury, but I think the challenge of it would be fun. So one of these days, I keep telling my wife and my kids that one of these days I'm going to do it. So that's my goal before I go.
It's on the bucket list.
I want to try. Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff, last thoughts.
I just, like I said earlier, I think tell people just enjoy the game. This is such a frustrating game. And I think the more you enjoy it and set goals, but don't set them so high that you can't reach them. But work hard. It takes a lot of work. Sometimes, as Craig and I as golf instructors, a lot of times you have to take baby steps to cure the big problem. So sometimes when your golf instructor tells you to hit little soft shots instead of little shots to gain the big ones, listen to him.
He is Jeff Gallagher. He is also a revered golf instructor at the High Performance Golf Institute at Lake Las Vegas. People look that up online. You can also just Google that as well, and you will see more information on how to get in touch with Jeff out there at High Performance Golf Institute. Jeff, thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks a lot, Tommy. Appreciate it.
Everybody, make sure you subscribe and review. Go to Apple Podcast and rate the show. It helps us grow the show, and it helps us a great deal with getting the show out to more people. Hope you enjoyed Before the Lights podcast. For show notes, links on how you can get in touch with Jeff, and to see more about his success, go to our website, beforethelightspod.com, and follow us on Instagram at Before the Lights Pod. For the Extra 5, the Patreon section of the show, you can also check that out on the website. It'll also tell you how to get your name shouted out on the show. Thank you for listening to Before the Lights. I'm Tommy Canale, and we'll talk to you next time